Thanks for clicking this video. Thanks for tuning into my channel. Simon Hill, Black American from Louisiana, coming to you live from Budapest, Hungary, here with my beautiful wife. Say hi, boo.
Hi, everyone. I'm Acti.
So, we're going to be briefly talking about this big story that everybody was talking about, sort of in the middle of, last week, I believe. Feel like the story is a bit old, but I do think it is relevant to talk about because I started my channel, doing travel content, and my wife and I have a second channel called Backpack Bandits where we travel everywhere, and Acti does all of the wonderful editing. So, everybody clap for Acti for that.
I'll clap for myself. Yeah, so we started with Georgia, Batumi, Georgia, the country, not the state. And then we went to Mauritius. We were in Turkey, which is my hometown, but it was still a new country for you. And then we went to Tanzania. We went to Kenya. We traveled across the Balkans, like Serbia, Albania. Where else? I forgot the other country's name, the small one.
Kosovo, Hungary.
Kosovo, and now we're in Hungary. So yeah, quite a lot of
Right.
places.
And we met while we were traveling. I was individually living in Serbia. She was a single girl in Serbia. So then we linked up, and now we're actually living in another country right now, Hungary. So traveling and being in different countries and places is something that's very normal for us. In fact, it's sort of like most of what we've known while we've been a couple. And while we've been in this relationship, we've documented so much of our travels. And some things I think generally could be classified as scary when you think about the places we've been or some situations we've been in. But overall, I think we've had, wonderful experiences while traveling and being safe travelers. But when I heard about this story about this Spanish couple, I it came across my feed and I didn't want to send it to you. I don't believe I sent it to you, right?
Yeah, no.
I didn't send it to you, but then you sent it to me like a day after, I first heard about it because for whatever reason, like we're always exchanging like information on WhatsApp and stuff like that. But I didn't want to share it with you because, we had recently went viral because the Albania videos always go viral every 6 months and stuff like that. And I could sympathize with the couple for going through something so tragic and horrific. And then all the internet knows them for is a 30-second clip or something like that. And I know what that feels like. And I didn't even want to share in that pain. And plus, what they went through was so horrific and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
how did you first find out about it? How did you first hear about it? How did you feel when you heard about the story?
Yeah, I think I saw it like on Twitter or something. And when I like looked at it and listened to them, I just thought like, wow, this could have happened to us. It could happen to us in the future. Like if we, you don't know like when these things happen, or you never imagine these things happening to you. So that was like the first thought in my head, like this is just terrible, and I can't like even imagine how I would be able to like travel and even like keep on living after something like that, because it's just truly horrible. So yeah, I was thinking, going back in my head, I was thinking about like all the sort of, you know, weird places that we've been to, and yeah, in my head like I was going through those things.
Yeah, I would argue that while it could happen to anybody, right? Something bad can happen to anybody at any time. I do think that they were living a certain lifestyle that made it, you know, more likely for them and more dangerous things could have happened to them because of how they were living. But I'll get into that after we read this article. So this is an article that Acti sent me from EFE.com. It's titled, and YouTube is going to demonetize this video anyway, so I don't care. Gang rape, kicks, blows, husband tied. Spanish tourist on gruesome India assault. Acti, don't smile. I saw you smile and you were about to laugh a bit
Oh,
just because I said rape.
really bad, but I'm laughing at you complaining about YouTube.
Anyway, we can't even have serious discussions on YouTube because everything is demonetized. Anyway, I don't care. Look, listen, this story was written by Michaela Vicaria and I believe it was published on March 4th. So, Dumka, India, March 4th. They took turns raping her for 2 or 3 hours while others beat her husband, who was left bound on the ground. This is how the Spanish couple recounts a horrific assault they suffered in India, drawing attention to the increasing sexual violence against women in the country. The bike touring couple was attacked while asleep in the tent they had pitched to spend the night on Friday at a desolate area of Kunji village, some 300 kilometers or an 8-hour drive from Ranchi, the capital of the eastern Indian state of Jharkhand. Jharkhand. I hope I said that right for all my Indian viewers if you're going to watch this. Unaware of the impending danger in the semi forested area, the couple woke up to a nightmare as a group of 7 men surrounded them. They took turns raping me for 2 to 3 hours while others beat my husband, who was left bound on the ground. The Spanish Brazilian woman told EFE, vividly remembering the blood curdling encounter. Her husband, tied and kept at a distance, endured blows and kicks from the attackers, fearing that his partner might already be dead. I didn't see her and thought they killed her, he said. I swear to God, if something like this happens to us, like 3 guys or 4 guys, whatever, however many guys come into our tents or our apartment or our hotel and say, all right, time to do some raping. Guys, rape me. Don't rape my wife. I'm saying my booty is up. My booty is up. Don't take my wife's booty. Nobody can take my wife's booty. I will get raped before my wife will get raped. You will have to rape me before you rape my wife.
You
I mean that.
unfortunately don't get a say in those situations, Simon. That's why it's rape.
That's what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die defending you. I would never let something like this happen to you. To the best of my ability, they would before they jump in you. They're gonna have to take my soul from me. Seriously. But I know that's easier said than done, especially in a scary situation in a foreign country. I don't want to make myself seem like a tough guy, but this is one of the worst type of experiences a man can go through. I would say, to see your woman brutalized and victimized in front of you. And it's especially touching for me as a black person because Black Americans, this is something that would regularly happen to Black women on the plantation. The slave master would walk in and literally say, "Give me your wife," and take her in and do what he wanted to do with her for all night. You know what I mean? And then she would have to come back, and that was it. But tell me, how did you feel about that?
Yeah, of course, like I can understand that it's like a horrific experience for both sides, like for the husband and the wife, but also like, getting like brutalized, like sexually brutalized in that way by like, I don't know, 6, 7 like people, 7 men, and that you don't know, and it's like you can die. She probably thought like she would die as well in a country that she like doesn't know, and she was just like traveling, vlogging, an hour before, probably like they were, just chilling, having fun or something like that. And that's just crazy, like the pain that she went through emotionally and physically, like both of them, but especially like the woman as well, because she's being violated. And
Mhm.
yeah, it's just no words.
Right. It's a horrific situation and it could happen anywhere. But I do think this story got more legs because it happened in India. So it's almost like, you know, there is a stereotype about India or Indian men that I think recently started proliferating online, that Indians are exceptionally horny, mannish, very sexually aggressive, and stuff like that. I never heard this stereotype growing up. I feel like I've only recently encountered this stereotype in the past 2 or 3 years, mostly on the internet and never in real life and stuff like that. But because it happened in India to this, white European woman, I do feel like this story gains more traction because it fulfills that stereotype. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I haven't heard it either, like, this particular thing that's going on in India, because I always guess, like, yeah, there are probably like a lot of crimes or sexual assaults and things like that, because it's a developing country, and also it's like a very crowded country. So it kind of makes sense that, yeah, there could be a lot of crime. But yeah, I don't know, I think it's also like from everything that I've read and looked at so far, it's very also cultural. And I can kind of understand that, because it's also the same way in Turkey when it comes to rape and sexual assaults. Like there's this social fear of being shamed. And if it's, for both for men and women, because let's say if it's your daughter that got like sexually assaulted, then the parents are like, we can't tell this to anybody, it's going to bring shame to our family and things like that. So there's that stigma. And I think, like, I don't think it's because Indian men are hornier than any other men on the planet. Like, that just sounds ridiculous a little bit.
Yeah, I think maybe, well, definitely there are probably a lot of sexual assault cases and rapes that happen in India that go underreported or not reported at all because of that social stigma you just spoke about. But I do think also, because we live in this world that is stereotyping India is one way, and also a white supremacist world where anything bad that happens to white women gets magnified over other women, right? Showing that feminism has to be intersectional if we really want to have freedom and justice and equality for all women. It shouldn't just be we talk about rape when a white woman, you know what I mean? Like, we shouldn't talk about anti-Semitism just because Hamas attacks Israel and stuff like that. These issues should always be spoken up about. But because of her skin color, her nationality, her privilege, that's why we're talking about this story more. And that also needs to be highlighted because this is going on in every country, in every place. But we only
Yeah.
talk about it. Oh, foreigner. The foreigner got raped now. Okay, that's the problem. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. I feel like, yeah, it's like also sort of like a national shame too. Like, oh, how can this happen to a European lady like in our country? Like, that's just we're so sorry. It's we're just like trying everything to find the men, and I think they found all of the men that like were criminals in this case. And it's like, they probably don't give the same amount of attention to the locals that experience this, because i
Yeah,
i would that also, like, the victims who are Indian, like Indian women, would maybe not feel that comfortable going to the police about it because maybe they don't believe them or something.
exactly. Let me continue on in the story. So, the visibly bruised woman said that hours later, she thought they were tired or didn't want to take any more risks when one of her rapists gave her clothes to wear before leaving the spot. The assaulted couple, travel bloggers sharing their experiences on social media during a world tour on a motorcycle, managed to contact the police, who took them to a health center for medical treatment. Police have arrested at least three suspects and identified others, all between 18 and 30 years old. The couple has been transferred to a government safe house in Dumka, about 50 kilometers from the crime spot, and appeared in court on Sunday to record their statement to a magistrate. Despite the haunting experience, the couple, appearing calm and relieved to be alive, said they have visited 66 countries covering 170,000 kilometers, including various challenging regions, and even entered Afghanistan on a motorcycle during the Taliban era. We have several months in Africa, all over the Middle East, Iraq, Kuwait, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and a lot of the time in those places, she said during the interview with EFE in the presence of three police officers. They had planned to leave India on Tuesday by motorcycle and travel to Nepal before flying to Spain. I want to say, before Donnie Williams jumped into the chat, he said, peace, peace, Donnie Williams, shout out to you. Before turning on the live stream, I watched their YouTube channel. And if you're not familiar with who they are, their YouTube channel is called Around the World, Vicente and what's the girl's name? Vicente and Fernanda. And I actually really, really like their content. And they remind me of me and my wife, actually, because how they travel is budget travelers. The most expensive thing they have are their cameras and their bike. And the way they travel is, and I've seen it because the video that you should watch is them traveling from Saudi Arabia to the United Arab Emirates. And what they do is this: they document what it's like crossing the border. Like, a good 50% of their video is like, what is it like literally traveling on a motorcycle as a Spaniard across the border on a motorcycle? Like, how is that interaction? And then what they do when they make it to the new country, they drive for miles and miles and miles on motorcycle, document everything, talk about how much pain they have in their neck and their butts and how much sand gets into their eyes. And then when it's nighttime, they pull up next to a bush on the side of the road and pitch their tent. And they sleep in the tent, and they purposely position the tent near the bush so that the cars don't see them when they're driving by and passerbys don't see them and stuff like that. It's a very wild way to travel. And just to be honest, I gotta say I would never travel like that. Now, my wife and I, when we go places, we always book hotels, Airbnbs, VRBOs. We have slept in a tent before because I always kept a tent just in case. And we slept on a tent in the beach one time, but it was never like this is how we are going to sleep and stuff like that. That doesn't say it's right for them to get assaulted, beaten, raped, or anything like that. But it is a very dangerous way to travel, I would say. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, definitely it would be like something that I would be afraid to do. So I applaud them for their like bravery, because that's crazy. Like just, being on the bike for hours and hours and then setting up a tent in middle of nowheres and stuff like that. That is like, not, I wouldn't feel safe and I wouldn't feel comfortable, definitely. And like you said, it doesn't justify what happened to them, but I feel like, this type of traveling is also becoming like more and more popular, though. Like, remember the German couple we watched that documentary, and they were like, you know, hitchhiking, staying at like other people's houses that they don't know, and, they meet online or something like that. So that's not safe either, even though they're staying at houses, but they're staying at places that, that belong to strangers and things like that. And they went to also like crazy places, like Afghanistan,
Mhm.
etc. So yeah, like I feel like that's becoming more and more popular because people get to document and stuff like that, and people should be able to do that. Do some like those crazy things
Mhm.
without being scared for their lives, without being scared to get raped and things like that. But you should also be prepared a little bit. I
Yeah.
would. I don't know, like if they had any weapons with them.
Right. Jumping to the comments, FXD says hi. Shout out FXD. Hello. The panda says, "What's up?" And then he said, or she said, "What do y'all think about pronouns? Mine are Nick and her. Whatever pronouns you want to identify with, they're fine with me. If you want to be called a certain thing, I think it's okay. What do you think, Acty?"
Same. Whatever you
All
want
right.
to be called is fine.
All right. So, yeah, jumping to how they traveled, I do, before turning on this live stream, I didn't want to just go off of the 30-second clip that everybody saw where they put the cameras to their face and it looked memeable and everybody laughed at them and pointed at them. And this is why I think it's important before you talk about people on social media is do a bit of research and go into their history and find out who they are. And I think, you know, if people actually did that, you would see the humanity in people, because what we're missing a lot of the times on social media is realizing that people are choosing to document and share their own lives for better or worse. Everybody is. Everybody's posting their pictures of them traveling, them being with family and friends and stuff like that. Before you want to bash on somebody who says something stupid or does something stupid or says something you don't like or does something you don't like, go back and look at them, because when I was watching the videos and I saw that their very first video is this girl learning how to ride a motorcycle, them talking about their relationship, them talking about what it was like, traveling through Tunis, traveling through Turkey and stuff like that. You see, like, these are real people. And they talk about, man, last night we couldn't sleep because there's like so many, rocks on the back of the bush here, and like you feel like these are real people,
Mm.
and that this is why we shouldn't like just bash on people and stuff like that, because too much times on social media that happens, in my opinion. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. And also, like, I feel like traveling this way minimizes that, notion of only rich people can travel, because we didn't have a lot of money while traveling. We stayed at like sometimes roach infested houses, sometimes like not very safe neighborhoods, but we made it through. We were be careful at times, and I feel like if a woman who stayed in a five-star resort hotel was raped and things like that, which is still pretty bad, but those things can happen too. So even if you're staying at a five-star resort hotel or whatever. So I don't think like, we should be saying, oh, they were traveling like just very dangerously and things like that, because I don't know. I feel like budget travel is the way to go.
Hmm. hmm I think so that it is important for budget travelers to be, outside and documenting and showing that it's possible because travel does open the minds of so many people all across the world, and it allows you to learn from different people and see different people and stuff like that. And that's the important thing. You know what I mean? We want to open our minds and be better people by traveling and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, do you want to add on to that?
I just wanted to say, like, even though, like, yeah, it sounds crazy, like what they were doing, and like a little bit of what we did as well. It may feel crazy, but I honestly prefer it that way as well. And I'm sure,
hmm
like, except this event that they went through, they had very good memories, like meeting random people on the road and stuff like that. Random acts of kindness, meeting crazy people that you remember and laugh about. Like, those are just like great things. And it's also very relatable that they chose to share it with the world like we did.
Right, right, exactly. In the video where they travel to the UAE and they pitch up their tent, some people came up to them and said, "Do you want water? Do you want something?" And they say no, and they're like, "Okay." Like, so yeah, they did meet random acts of kindness, which is 99% of the time what happens when you do travel. Traveling for me has opened my eyes that most of the world are actually kind, cool people. Everybody hates their president. Everybody's broke. Nobody is actually happy with their countries, but generally people are cool. These are the four things that I've noticed all across the world, everywhere I've gone, right? And that's what traveling is supposed to do to your mind and help you, break those barriers down. So, I'm going to
Yeah.
continue here. They hope for justice, emphasizing that stringent penalties must be imposed on the culprits. Here in India, the penalties are indeed harsh, and anyone who thinks of doing something like this should think twice, he said, insisting that despite such cases, India remains a safe country, as is the rest of Asia. Crimes of sexual violence are rampant in India, with Jharkhand among the 10 provinces with the highest number of cases of sexual assault and rape. In 2022, India reported an average of nearly 90 rapes every day, according to data from the National Crime Records Bureau. However, activists argue that the actual number could be higher due to underreporting driven by victim stigma. The latest crime report said in all such cases, less than 2% were foreign victims, although this may be partly due to the difficulties in initiating a police case by non national women. In some cases, tourists and distrust of the authorities, EFE. So that's the story here. I think it was well written and very important that they put this out. I want to say once again that I believe this story got so much attention because it happened in India, and a lot of people are spreading this, stereotype about Indians of being sexually violent and aggressive and prone to assault. There have been headlines where like it read on Vice, three Indian men, gang rape an iguana, or girl put into hospital because of rape. Her rapist come there and rape them again. And some people I've heard say that these stories are propaganda put out there by Pakistanis because Pakistan and India has beef. So there are Pakistanis pretending to be Indians online, being sexually aggressive to like women, and then also maybe some of this is misinformation. I don't know. I'm just reporting some of the rumors I've heard and stuff like that. I've also heard that in India there is a large amount of men that are the total of the population, disproportionate to the number of women in the population. So I believe like India is like 52% men and 48% women. So that could be an imbalance that's happening in the society. But I would argue China has the same thing. And generally, we don't hear about that happening in China. But maybe also the news doesn't leak out about China. I don't know. What do you want to say about that?
Um, I mean, rape happens everywhere around the world. Even when you go to the, most peaceful nations, most developed nations, and things like that, it's still there. And I don't. I just feel like this is such a strong accusation to make about a country or people, and I don't even know if I buy the propaganda part. Maybe like the way they portray it on the Western media might include like white supremacist propaganda and things like that, just like sort of you know um focusing on the cultural side rather than the person or the event and things like that. But I do also think, like, yes, developing nations, and sometimes like very religious rape nations do face with a lot of like rape cases. It's like, once again,
Hmm.
it's the same in Turkey. And I feel like the reason for Turkey is that there is a lot of oppressed sexuality that comes from like cultural norms and things like that. So, and also like public shaming of the victims and things like that. Why was she here? Why was she wearing that? And just accusing the victim instead of, accusing the perpetrator. So I also think, like, yes, there is some cultural something there that sort of like makes it a bit more able, or at least even if it happens, it hides it. If
Hmm. Hmm. Let me ask you, did you ever feel worried about getting raped when we were in the country of Mauritius, which is, you know, 60, 70% Indian?
No, no.
Did you ever feel in danger of getting raped when we were in any of the countries that we traveled to?
No, no, I didn't feel like in danger most of the time. I
I
can't.
did. I almost got raped by two Serbians. Y'all go check out that video.
But yeah, like there were times, like I remember one time in Mauritius, we were in Mauritius and we had a fight, and I just wanted to like go out and walk around, and it was like 9 p.m. or something like that, or 10 p.m., and we were staying in like a very not populated area, and I was walking around like crying and things, and like listening to music, and these like two police officers stopped by me and said like, it's kind of dangerous here, so you should probably go back to your apartment. If you want, like, we could escort you there. And the house was like 5 minutes away, so I said, okay, like, I'll go by myself. And that's the only time that I can recall where I was like, "Oh, wait, like this can be dangerous." But I didn't feel like I was in danger, but because they said it, I was like, "Okay, I should probably go back."
Hmm. Hmm. All right. And what about any of the times in Africa, like in Kenya or Tanzania?
No, I mean there were like in Arusha, which is like in the middle of the country, and it's not that like modern, um, you know. But even in there, like walking to home around like in the in mid around at midnight and things like that, I never really felt like in danger. Specifically, like I never felt like in danger for being raped and things like that. I was mostly annoyed by people calling me Muzungu or just saying hi to me all the time because I'm white. But other than that, I never like felt sexually in danger.
Right, right, right. Well, that's good to hear. And I think we should share that story because, people might have this preconception because I get these sorts of comments in my comment section. Oh, if a white person went to Africa, they would be killed. Or if white people, apparently the world is dangerous for white people and stuff like that, which is not true. Generally, if you watch Vicente and Fernanda's other videos, they go to all of these African nations and Middle Eastern nations, places where there is rampant sexism, where there is, gender discrimination. They go there and they're treated fairly well, right? That doesn't mean that those isms don't exist there. It just means that most of the time people are generally cool and it's safe for, most women to travel through. Now, some people might bring this up later. Oh, Fernanda is like a relatively attractive looking woman. She's much, much younger than Vincente. And somebody might give, okay, this is giving the vibe of like sugar baby, sugar daddy, something like that. If you watch their content or look at them, even in that 30-second clip video, maybe she attracted attention to herself and stuff like that. This is something that people will say. It's not what I believe. And I don't want to give that even as justification, but that needs to be talked about and nipped in the bud. I don't think even if Fernanda was super hot, which she's all right, she's like an 8. She's like an 8. Okay, she's like an 8. She's a good Spanish ocho. She's a decent looking girl, but she doesn't deserve what happened to her. And women should be able to wear exactly what they want and dress how they want and not be victims of sexual assault. Doesn't matter if she posted, 20 thirst traps on Instagram. She didn't deserve to have that happen to her. But this is still commentary or a point people might make. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's insane that, people can make this relevant to the story because it's really irrelevant. Whatever you look like, whoever you date, or whatever your relationship is with your, partner, you can be a sugared baby, or you can be a trophy wife, whatever. It does not matter like what you are. And what matters is that this should have not happened, because yeah, like I can understand that, yes, you do have to wear certain things and not wear certain things in certain places, because it's kind of like what the norm is. Like, I'm not going to go to Saudi Arabia and walk around with a bikini in the mall, right? So like, yeah, I will not be like probably wearing a super short skirt and things like that, because I want to fit in and I don't want to attract anyone. And I'm fine with that. And it's okay if like some women are not fine with that, but just don't go there. But in general, I don't think she was walking around in a thong or something like that, honestly, because it's hard to travel like that with a bike as
I would
well.
ask you this question though, because people would say to me, Simon, you can't expect to travel somewhere and not be called nigger or not be racially insulted, because that could happen to you just for being black there. If a woman did, it would be illegal. It wouldn't happen. But let's say a woman did wear a bikini in Saudi Arabia or whatever. Does that mean she deserves then to get called bitch, whore, insulted, and stuff like that?
No, it doesn't mean it should happen. It should never happen, no matter what you wear, what you look like.
But
But there is a reality that it will happen at some places, and that
so
doesn't
you,
mean it's right, but it will probably happen. You
but
know.
what you said afterwards, yes, we acknowledge that it could happen. But what you said afterwards is that don't go there. If you feel like you can't be yourself there, then don't go there. But I would argue that's limiting of human freedom. I would never tell a trans person, hey, in this country, they don't like trans people. That doesn't sound like a problem for you. It sounds like a problem for them, because a person should be able to be themselves. I would never tell a woman, don't go to Morocco or Tunisia or Saudi Arabia because you can't wear what you want. It sounds like you should make that choice for yourself, not me continuing to perpetuate this idea that there are places off limits for people because of who they are. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. But what I was trying to say is like, not don't go there, but you can go there and you can wear whatever you want, but then you have to also like deal with the consequences of that. So that's my thing. Like, if you don't want to deal with the consequences with of that, and like, it doesn't really make sense for you to be somewhere that, you would be ostracized all the time, and you still want to do like whatever you want. So like, I don't know, it's a bit weird, but it's not the same as being black and being called the n-word, because you can't really change what your skin looks like.
But a
But
woman can change being a woman.
no, no, but you can swap a short skirt, a mini skirt, with a longer skirt, and that would, make your trip easier. And it's more like adjusting to the culture, and not really, or adjusting to the laws and norms and whatever, because you're a guest in that country.
Hmm.
So I'm saying, like, yes, you can still wear a mini skirt, but there will be consequences, and you should be ready to, like, um, face those consequences, like if that's really what you want to do, because you can't adjust everywhere to your own standards and norms.
Yeah, in my opinion, that's what I would say. I would never tell somebody don't go there. The reason I brought this up is because you said don't go there if if you think that's uncomfortable for you. I would still argue that people should be able to go where they want to go. And yes, there might be consequences because you're the only black person in the north of Norway, right? But you should still be able to go there and also get treated with basic human dignity and respect. I think we try to make this more convoluted and say, oh, people have different cultures, people have different norms and customs and that sort of stuff. But I feel like, and anybody can disagree with me if they want to, basic human decency and respect is a universal norm. Treating people with kindness and dignity and not insulting them, not attacking them, not ostracizing them to the extreme on purpose is a basic human right and dignity that people should have, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree, but sadly that's not always the reality.
Right, right, right. And another thing I want to say about her beauty, and people might tying that to why she got attacked and stuff like that. If you actually watch their content, this girl is not like a glam girl. She's not this type of girl that's all about makeup and, all sorts of like fancy clothes and stuff like that. She just so happens to be pretty, living a rough lifestyle. Because in the videos, she like wakes up in a tent with her hair messy. She's running around with like bonnets and hair pieces and stuff like that. She's hardly wearing any makeup, and it's hard to be able to keep up a face while you're out there in the middle of the Jordanian desert. You get what I'm saying? Like it's almost impossible, right? When we were traveling, was it hard to do makeup and try to keep like aesthetically pleasing face and stuff like that?
I mean, I think I was trying that for a while in the beginning, but then later I just gave in. But also, like, Africa was so hot, and I just didn't want to put anything to my face because it felt uncomfortable. Like, even if I put foundation or whatever, like, I'm already not a person that puts a lot of makeup, but when I do, it just melts off my face. So it's like, I was like, what's the point? I'm gonna just go natural, you know? Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's even in, like you're saying, in houses, it's hard to keep it up.
yeah, exactly, exactly. But yeah, she just so happens to look all right. And any picture she takes is gonna make her look, like somebody who is appealing. But just because a woman looks appealing doesn't mean that she deserves assault. Let's just keep that
Exactly.
absolutely clear.
Yeah.
Absolutely clear. Because the comments under the videos and on social media have been insane on attacking these people.
Yeah.
And a
And
lot of go ahead.
sorry, I just also want to make this very clear because of the past conversation that we had. A woman can be very beautiful, woman can be very glamorous, a woman can wear whatever she wants, and no, none of it means that she deserves to get sexually assaulted.
Hmm.
Even if
Absolutely.
it's culturally fit or whatever, it's never the reason for sexual assault.
Right, right. But the bigger question is, I think, why is this culture somewhat, prevalent in India, right? Now, I want to say two things. Like, there's a saying we have in America where there's smoke, there's fire. So if people constantly say there's so much, sexual violence in India, maybe there's some truth to that. Another thing I want to say, though, is that the media can make you believe that some group of people are the oppressors, and in reality, they're the oppressed. That's me butchering a Malcolm X quote. But we don't know actually what's in India. Like, we haven't been to India. I've only met a handful of Indians. Most of my Indian interactions have been with Mauritians, who are totally different than, you know, native land Indians and stuff like that. So I don't know. I don't know. I think what we need to do now is look at that New York Times article, if you would want to read that.
Sure. Sorry, I was running out of battery, so I had to. Okay. Okay, so yeah, this is a New York Times article. It's a opinion essay, and it's called "In India's Gang Rape Culture, All Women Are Victims," and it was published in June 2nd, 2023, and it's by this Indian journalist, Vidya Krishnan. Hopefully, I'm saying that right. Okay, so Goa, India. My niece was just 4 years old when she turned to my sister in law in a packed movie theater in Mumbai and asked about gang rape for the first time. We were watching the latest Bollywood blockbuster about vigilante justice, nationalistic fervor, and of course, gang rape. Four male characters seized the hero's sister and dragged her away. Where are they taking Didi? My niece asked, using the Hindi word for elder sister. It was dark, but I could still make out her tiny forehead furrowed with concern. Didi's gang rape took place off screen, but it didn't need to be shown. As instinctively as a newborn fawn senses the mortal danger posed by a fox, little girls in India sense what men are capable of.
I just want to say, very interesting that they did that.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, definitely, like, once again, even though we don't have like a gang rape culture in Turkey, we do have a rape culture, with like toxic masculinity and everything that you see like on screen. Men are being found attractive because they're taking a woman and things like that, and you don't necessarily like associate that with rape, because that's not the way like you were taught that, like, yeah, like sometimes love is forced and sometimes love is violent, which is crazy. Like, love is
Mm,
not that way. But it's like, that's what a real man is like. He uses force and these
hmm.
type of like things that are also like, very much existent in my culture. So I'm guessing like maybe in their culture that's just like seen as a natural like interaction. I don't know.
Well, they obviously connotate that with negativity because they said the
Yeah.
villains took the hero's girl. So obviously they wouldn't make the hero do this, right? So it's seen negatively, I would say. FXD says, not to discredit, but the news spreads very quickly. What happened in India some time ago? Yeah, that's what we're talking about. I think you're just not paying attention. But anyway, another thing I wanted to talk about. Oh, I had it in my mind. It was right here. It was right here. Oh, no, I forgot it. Damn.
You
Just
said
continue
it
with it.
was it was like negatively connotated in people's head as
Yeah, it was
well.
negatively seen. Now I know what I wanted to say. I feel like in Black American culture, we don't have a rape culture, right? There is sexism that does exist in the Black American community, right? But I don't think Black people,
Mm.
hip hop is only about bitches, hoes, cars, and money, but it's deeper than that. But I would say sexism in the Black community is a very low thing. The only thing, closest thing we have to a rape culture is train culture, which I think is a subculture of a subculture. And if you don't know what a train is, some people also call it the Triz man, the Triz, a menage a trois. Some people, especially in the South, they like to run trains. A train is when two guys have sex with one girl willingly. The girl is willingly. She's a flipper. She's a bop. she's a scallywag. She's a harlot.
Okay. Okay.
She, it's not a girl that you just grab and take with you or you coerce into it. It's a girl that you have convinced, and you and your homies run a train. Okay, I've never done a train, but a lot of my homies did when I was coming up, and
Mhm.
it's not for me. It's not for me. But that's the closest thing. But do you think that's problematic too?
I mean, it's if it's consensuous, then no. Like, do whatever you want in your bedroom. Like, I don't care.
Yeah. All right. That's all I had to say.
Okay. Yeah, I think it also like I just wanted to say like uh there the reason why there's no rape culture in black culture is also a little bit tied to the history as well, because all African Americans went through the same thing with slavery, and you all came like over it to the on the brighter side together. So I think that's also why. And yeah. Anyway.
By the way, Mad Villainy jumped into the comments. Shout out to Mad. He says, "I'll always look at trains with the side eye." Definitely, definitely. I had a few homies that ran a few trains, and I was like, "Oh, like, y'all wild for that." but I want to say this. I think another reason why sexism in the Black American community is at a low is because we've had female heroes longer than we've actually had.
Mm, mm.
Right? Then you have like your Susan Anthony's and stuff like that. But most of the time, Black women have been the biggest like feminist advocates in America, and that's why we don't look at them disparagingly and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Though I know somebody later is going to say, "What about Ike and Tina?" Fuck Ike and Tina.
No, but that,
everybody, everybody got a dysfunctional grandma and grandpa. Everybody
yeah,
got a bad uncle and auntie.
I was gonna say that like almost every culture around the world is sort of sexist, or there is sexism in those cultures. Like that is the reality, sadly. But yeah, there are
Yeah.
levels to it.
Someone's gonna bring up Joe Jackson. Fuck Joe Jackson. Everybody got a daddy who beat that ass.
Okay. Anyway, continuing the story. You may wonder why take a 4-year-old to such a movie, but there's no escaping India's rape culture. Sexual terrorism is treated as the norm. Society and government institutions often excuse and protect men from the consequences of their sexual violence. Women are blamed for being assaulted and are expected to sacrifice freedom and opportunity in exchange for personal safety. This culture contaminates public life in movies and television, in bedrooms, where female sexual consent is unknown. In the locker room talk from which young boys learn the language of rape. India's favorite profanities are about having sex with women without their consent. Yeah.
It can still exist, but still.
Yeah. Yeah. No, no, I agree. I mean, like, yeah, like your idioms and your proverbs and things like that. Like, there are so bad, like, so many bad proverbs in Turkish that are just like rapey. Very, like, rapey, very sexist, almost like insane and things like that.
Give us one.
Like, I actually shared this with my Tunisian friend, and she said they had the same thing. And there's like this saying where they say like, if rape is inevitable, then you should at least enjoy it. Like, what the hell is that? Like, it's so bad. And I told her this because we were talking about like rape fantasies or something, which is a weird conversation, but we were saying like where we were thinking about like where does this come from? And yeah, like it's just, it's so bad that they make it seem like this should be something enjoyable, and that's like
Mhm.
in the language, like you
Mhm.
said, and it's just, yeah,
Right, right,
it's
right.
very rooted
Yeah, I
in
think the closest thing that we have in general in English is the word motherfucker, right? And I know that's very far away, but I think we are desensitized to the word motherfucker, right? Like,
yeah,
because it is kind of gross when you think about it. But we've heard
yeah,
this word used in so many contexts, it doesn't have any power as much as it used to. But I don't know. In general, we don't have that in our culture as much, though. We did have a president who said, "I want to grab women by the pussies." When you're a star, you can do it. They just let you. And I've
yeah.
done it. In fact, I went to court and they found me guilty for rape. I was the former president. Guess who I am?
Wow. Okay, I was gonna say something. Oh yeah, like also I just want to add that like media showing it and romanticizing like this idea of rape, it also makes like just like you said, it desensitizes this idea of rape to people. And if you hear it all the time, every day, all day, you're like, oh, it just happens, like that's it. And you
Right.
kind of lose the meaning of how bad it is.
Mm. I want to disagree with that because I do think we hold rape very seriously generally in the world, in my opinion.
Yes,
Uh, but
but
but but
yeah.
it's a crime that we hold a high barrier to.
Mhm. That is true because I was looking at this website. It's called like Data Panda or something, and you can see like different statistics. And when you look at the rape statistics, it's like Sweden or something. I'm not really sure which one was it, but one of the like those countries was on in the ninth place. And then I looked at like the notes, and it said that like this country changed and broadened the perspective of rape. So like for example, in that country, rape is just even like touching your butt without the consent, and that could be considered as sexual assault, which it is. So now that there are more cases that are being reported because of how they broadened up the thing,
Hmm.
because I got groped a bunch of times in my life and I never reported any because, it's just something that happens
Hmm. Hmm.
sometimes,
But
and it's very disturbing. Yes, it's not normal. I'm not normalizing it, but that's what happens, like,
right. And I'm not normalizing it either, but a good portion of the times you've been groped have been by me.
No, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about stranger men. But yeah. Anyway, okay, continuing. It is this sorry. It is the specific horror of gang rape that weighs most heavily on Indian women that I know. You may have heard of the many gruesome cases of women being gang raped, disemboweled, and left for dead. When an incident rises to national attention, the kettle of outrage boils over, and women sometimes stage protests, but it passes quickly. All Indian women are victims, each one traumatized, angry, betrayed, exhausted. Many of us think about gang rape more than we care to admit. In 2011, a woman was raped every 20 minutes in India, according to government data. The pace quickened to about every 16 minutes by 2021, when more than 31,000 rapes were reported, a 20% increase from the previous year. In 2021, 2,200 gang rapes were reported to the authorities.
That's absolutely horrible. Those are horrible statistics. Now, and what makes it even crazier is that those are actually small numbers when you compare it to India's size, like a billion people there, right? So there are so many that are going underreported, but 31,000 is still a lot. It's still absolutely a lot. And I don't know if they made this distinction, but we also have to think some of those might be children too, which makes
Yeah.
it even more horrific.
Yeah, like all women, we're talking about underage women as well, like younger than 18 probably.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay, but those grotesque numbers tell only part of the story. 77% of Indian women who have experienced physical or sexual abuse never tell anyone, according to one study. Prosecutions are rare. Indian men may face persecution because they are Muslims, Dalits, untouchables, or ethnic minorities, or for daring to challenge the corrupt powers that be. Indian women suffer because they are women. Soldiers need to believe that war don't kill them. War won't kill them, that only bad luck will. Indian women need to believe the same about rape, to trust that we will come back to the barracks safe each night, to be able to function at all. Reports of violence against women in India have risen steadily over the decades, with some research citing a growing willingness by victims to come forward. Each rape desensitizes and prepares society to accept the next one, the evil becoming banal. Banal.
Banal. Yeah, yeah.
Banal.
I want to say there are some people who have said that in India they had a culture of burying newborn baby girls because it
Mm,
was more preferable to have a son, which is a very ancient practice, unfortunately, that has happened in multiple societies
yeah,
across the world. And also, when we think about China's one child policy, many Chinese couples because they could only have one child reported a son. So often they had abortions whenever they found out the sex of the baby and stuff like that. So now these societies have a disproportionate number of young men to the amount of women. And some people might say a society can only about that.
what? You were cut a little bit. Mhm. Mhm. Okay. So,
I was asking you what you think about that.
um, I mean, is that really the reason? I don't know. I don't know if that's really the reason. I think also, like, I feel like what is more important are also like the stresses that those cultures have to go through. Because, like, for example, in India, like they said, there are, the caste system, that stress that comes from the caste system, and being a minority, like being a Muslim, being a Dalit, or other ethnic minorities and things like that. And these kind of stresses go upon all of the people. And I just feel like, in when you have so many different stressors in your daily life, you kind of go to a crisis a little bit. And then I feel like that's where these sort of ideas come as, like, almost like a drug that infiltrates, young men's minds. I don't think it's about, like, women being more. I don't know.
I do think that there is some truth that men become more frustrated and stressed when they don't have access to women. We're seeing that now in the Western world with the incel movement, where guys are shooting up clubs or stabbing each other or going on mass shooting sprees or running over people with their cars, like in Canada, because they are incels, because they can't get a girlfriend. And some even go so far as to say the government should give mandated girlfriends. The government should make sure every man at least has one girlfriend in their life to get rid of all the incels and stuff like that.
Yeah, but we're not something that you can attain. Like, we're not baits for you to relieve your stress and things like that. Like, for me, it's insane. Like, there are, I don't know, brothels everywhere in the world, in every country. Go there and do what you want if you really want to do it with someone who's doing it consensually. Like, we're not something that you can just take because you can't enjoy yourself sexually. Like, that's not our fault, and that's not in our, like, responsibilities. But in, like, these cases, or in some cultures, it has to be our responsibility to just to protect, ourselves from that sort of rage, I guess.
Mm. Let's jump into the comments. FXD says some media reports that the government in India is too discriminatory towards minorities. Example, where a woman is stripped naked in public because of religion. I believe when the British showed up in India, the Indians used to practice this ritual where if a woman's husband died, they would burn her alive in a pyre. And I believe they said that they got rid of that practice. That is horrible. I do think of sexism in it that is discriminatory towards women, and I think that thing will continue to be a part of their society unless there is like a revolutionary cultural change that needs to happen. And I think a lot of liberals or people who consider themselves on the left have a problem talking about this issue because on one hand we don't want to speak bad about another culture in the way that the white supremacists do and the people on the right do when they talk about certain civilizations are better than others, as if there was never a rampant rape culture in European society. Stop it. The Romans were raping everybody. The
Yeah.
Europeans showed up in America and literally raped whole nations into existence. Dominican Republic, Mexico, the United States of America, Brazil. Like, rape culture is a part of European civilization. So let's stop that right there. But I do think a lot of people on the left have trouble talking about this because, on one hand, you don't want to condemn all Indian society like the white supremacists do, but on the other hand, we do want to speak up for women. And I will just say it clear. I'll say it here. By what we're reading in the New York Times here, and what we've also heard, and what we've seen happen to this couple, I do think there is a serious cultural problem in that society that needs to be talked about. The same way anybody who hasn't been to America can look at it objectively and come to the conclusion yeah, they have a cultural problem with racism in that society. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and like I do feel sometimes, talking about it and the way that this article is written and things like that, it feels, I'm judging like a whole country. And obviously that's not the case. Not every Indian man is a rapist or like a, you know, weird guy who just wants to fuck everything. That's not true. But yeah, I can also understand like it's sort of the same way in Turkey, like I explained, before in the video. So I can understand that, yes, like there is this culture that sort of keeps this thing alive, and that needs to be accepted. And, that needs to be accepted for Indian women. Like those Indian women are the people who has to go through this every day, right? So, you know, we need to talk about it because for them. And they also, I'm
Yeah,
sure, like it said, it says in the article that they're doing some protests too and things like that. But it's hard to
yeah,
change the whole systems. Also, like a system such as India, just by doing like a protest walk as
yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah. Well, like I said, it needs to be a cultural change, and a
Yeah.
cultural change doesn't just mean protest and walks. There has to be a change in mindset and education. One of the biggest cultural changes that happened in my lifetime in America was a campaign to get rid of smoking. And in one generation, they pumped us full of so many commercials, so many billboards, so many drug programs at school and stuff like that. That basically my parents' generation was like the last generation that really smoked like that.
Mm.
And here I am picking up the mantle. I'm a nicotine fiend, baby. I ain't putting it down. No, I'm gonna put it down. I'm gonna put it down. Smoking is
Yeah.
bad, kids. Okay, but like it is possible to change cultural minds. In America, it was very common just to walk up to a black person and say, "Get out of my way, nigger." Like that was okay. That was okay for decades, centuries. But that was a cultural change. So that same thing can happen in India. I will always be on the side of progressive cultural change, and I do think it can happen. I'm going to
Yeah.
jump into the comments. Nelson Moreno says, "I'm sorry, women." Acti, do you accept Nelson's apology?
Thank you, Nelson, for the kindness. Yes.
All right. Moreno says, "Do they respect the cows more?" In reference, do the Indians respect
Yeah.
cows more than women because of religion? That's kind of a funny joke. Mad Villainy says, "That's why bordellos are needed." Now, I'm not sure if you mean borders or something like that, but I've already said what I said about borders. I don't think borders are actually progressive for humanity and that sort of stuff. Uh, Once again, Indians, if they flood
Yeah, I just want to say, like, yeah, there should be a balance. Like, we should not have double standards for, white people or Europeans and things like that. We should not like forget what happened in the past. But I think it's also important to acknowledge the problems that some cultures have, including like my culture. So yeah, that's just what I'll say.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know if you're tired. Are you tired? Are you ready to go?
No, I'm ready. Let's go.
Okay.
Feminism, baby.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. But one more thing I want to say about the border stuff. They're going to say stuff like, okay, we need border protection to prevent us from the raping Mexicans or the raping Indians who are going to come into our countries. And also in Turkey as well, there's have been people who say, oh, the Pakistani Afghanis are coming to Turkey and they're assaulting Turkish women, videotaping them in the mall and stuff like that. When Acti, you know this better than I do. Who
Mhm.
are the number one assaulters of Turkish women?
A Turkish man.
Turkish men, right? The men in our own countries are the one who are assaulting our women, right? But let's really break this down. Many Europeans and privileged people who just so happen Rape. Are we really going to talk about that? I did a live stream on my channel last year about Americans and Europeans traveling to Kenya to sleep with children, but there's no border control for
Yeah.
us. I haven't heard any stories about Kenyans coming to Germany or Italy and raping Italian kids. But because of this white supremacist world we live in, if I have a British passport and I just so happen to show up in Thailand, I can sleep with 14-year-old girls for $20.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, we do have that like in Turkey. There is this like sort of bad naming certain cultures because there was like one rapist that raped a Turkish girl or just any girl or whatever, and we use that as a weapon to, make them look bad. But the fact is like and this is true for every like rape case, like 60, like I think it's 70% or 80% of rape cases happen uh through like someone already. So it's probably like your next door neighbor, it's probably someone in your family, your uncle, your brother, whatever. Like that's the reality of it, that like those people use that because they have a stronger hold of the woman and they can threat that person and things like that. So it's usually most of the time not a stranger. Sometimes it is like in the Spanish, girl's case, but most of the time it's not. And most of the time that like people that can't come to a country don't come there to like rape women.
Mm,
So
right, exactly.
every country has rapers and things like that, and most of the time the cases are from their own people.
Right, right, right. By the way, Nelson Moreno jumped into the comments. He says, "You're glitching a bit, Simon." I'll summarize my little spiel about what I said. There are Europeans who travel to places like Thailand, Kenya, and all throughout Latin America, and they do sex tourism or blatant rape, and they have the privilege to do it because of the passports that they have. And they just so happen to come from European nations, mostly white nations, who dominate the world right now. And so that's okay. That's okay, but we still want to demonize poor people of the earth who 99% of the time want to travel to Germany, Italy, Spain, America, just to make a better life for themselves. Let's not do that. Let's not obfuscate the two things when it comes to the borders. This is
Yeah.
why I'm always going to challenge you guys. I love my audience. I love the people who jump into the chat, but I'm always going to channel you. Really think about these ideas that you're putting out there. You get what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
what Acti said is absolutely true. 99% of the sexual assault cases are from family members, friends, people at work, people you know. And the reason why we're talking about Vincenta, it's very rare that some guys are just going to run up on you and just rape you. But India, unfortunately, as this Indian lady saying here, there is a rape culture there, gang rape culture, and it needs to be addressed and talked about and changed.
Yeah. Okay, I'll continue. So, gang rape is used as a weapon, particularly against lower castes and Muslims. The first instance that women my age remember was in 1980 when Poolan Devi, a lower caste teenager who had fallen in with a criminal gang, she was abducted and repeatedly raped by a group of upper caste attackers. She later came back with members of her gang and they killed 22 mostly upper caste men.
Damn, that's gangster. That's low key gangster. I can't
It
lie. That's
is.
hard.
It was a rare instance of a brutalized woman extracting revenge. Her rape might never have made headlines without that bloody retribution.
Where's the movie? We need that movie.
Yeah, I mean that's crazy, and I'm gonna say that they deserved it because that's just like insanely sad. But that's rarely the case. I'm pretty sure this is like the only time that this happened.
Absolutely. We need a good Hollywood blockbuster for that because that's hard. That's hard.
Yeah,
We
we need a
need to
musical.
get what's her name? What's her name? We need to get some American Indian actresses there in that. You know.
No Americans, stop.
Okay.
Anyway, Miss Davy threw a spotlight on caste apartheid, the suffering of Bilkis Bano, the defining gang rape survivor of my generation, highlighted the boiling hatred that Indian institutions under Prime Minister Narendra Modi, a Hindu nationalist, have for Muslim women. In 2002, brutal violence between Hindus and Muslims swept through Gujarat state. Ms. Bano, then 19 and pregnant, was gang raped by an angry Hindu mob, which also killed 14 of her relatives, including her 3-year-old daughter. Critics accused Mr. Modi, Gujarat's top official at the time, of turning a blind eye to the riots. He has not lost an election since. Mm. Ms. Bano's life took a different trajectory. She repeatedly moved houses after the assault for her family's safety. Last August, 11 men who were sentenced to life in prison for raping her were released on the recommendation of a review committee stacked with members of Mr. Modi's ruling party. After they were freed, they were greeted with flower garlands by Hindu right wingers. The timing
Whoa.
was suspicious. Gujarat was to hold important elections a few months later, and Mr. Modi's party needed votes. A member of his party explained that the accused, as upper caste Brahmins, had good values and did not belong in prison. Men know these rules. They wrote the rule book. What's most terrifying is that releasing rapists could very well be a vote getter. Yeah.
But there was a gang rape case that was interesting. So I think in the early 2000s, there was a black stripper. It's almost very similar to this story, almost copy and paste. And if I remember right, the Duke players got off. The Duke players like didn't get charged or something like that. If any of you guys remember that story, fill me in with the information because I'm not going to look it up right now. It's very similar to this. There was also a case of this very like well white boy who got drunk at a party one time and he raped some girl like behind a trash can because when she passed out, and I believe he only got like probation, like, and it was like textbook definition rape. You get what I'm saying? Like
Mhm.
forcible removal of clothes, penetration, all of that, and yeah, that was very disheartening to see those cases like that happen. And yeah, I wanted to ask you: are there any prominent rape cases in Turkey?
Yes, there are a lot. There's like one similar to and now it's better, but it was a bit lagging when you were talking. But yeah, like there was one that was very similar to one of the cases in India. Like in India, some girl got raped in the bus by a bunch of men, and that happened in Turkey as well. And she was like a high school student or something. And people were saying like, "Oh, she was wearing a short skirt, and why was she like riding the bus at nighttime or something?" So, there are so many that I don't even like remember their names, but yeah, a lot of like horrific, you know, uh, also like men like raping the woman and then also like killing them, cutting them in pieces and stuff like that, like stuff that you would see in the movies. It happened in Turkey. Whatever you
Mm.
thought that wouldn't happen to women, it happened in Turkey.
Oh wow.
So yeah.
Okay, okay. Sorry, everybody, for the lagging. I don't know what's happening with my connection, but I was just talking about the Duke lacrosse players case. Matt Villainy brought it up. And I was also talking about the case of this white guy who got probation after he raped a girl behind a trash can when she was very drunk. And people were very upset. And the judge was like, he's a good boy. He just made a mistake. Like, I think that's what the judge actually said, too. And that caused a big uproar for people who were paying attention.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'll even take it even further. If we're not even talking about rape, if we start talking about femicide in the US, which also is a major issue, I believe, in Turkey as well,
Yeah.
like we have so many prominent cases, like the OJ and Nicole. Like, let's keep it real. Let's keep it real. OJ and Nicole is probably the most famous example, but there have been so many instances of women getting killed by their husbands and their husbands getting somewhat away with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
definitely. That's also like very, very common in Turkey as well. Like femicides are just insane, insane numbers.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I want to say that like looking at the dates and stuff. So this happened in 2022, and then the guys got out at 2011.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, so that was like only what, like 9 years in prison
Are you talking
for.
about the Duke players?
No, I'm talking about the Indian case,
Oh, the
Miss
Indian guys.
Rana.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. So like they rape a 19-year-old girl who was pregnant. They kill her baby. They killed 14 of her relatives and they got like 9 years in
Wow.
prison only. Like that's crazy. And they're greeted with flowers by Hindu right wingers and they're told that they have good values. Like this is just turning a blind eye, like just in your face.
Some rally and shot up protesters who were fighting for Black lives. They make all of these bad people heroes, and I feel like on the left we generally don't do that. On the left, we don't say he was okay. Kim Jong Un, he's not that bad. Like we on the left, generally we call a people a person. No, no, no.
Mhm.
Was just trying to do what was good for Germany. Like they'll really try to make you believe right wing people are actually good. Like you get what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah, 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 definitely, definitely. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, like oh, like in Turkish culture, like yeah, being bad to a woman is really condemned. So I don't know if there were any cases where like a rapist was made into a hero. There were definitely like excused in terms of like, oh, it's not that bad, and there was like some blame put onto the woman. But I don't think like there were any like ones that became heroes later.
yeah, yeah. By the way, Mad Villainy jumped into the comments, said they killed her and her relatives. That sounds personal. Yeah, the personal beef that they had with them is that they were Hindu and their enemies were Muslim. So,
Yeah.
these Hindu nationalists said we got to get rid of the Muslims. And that's another thing. Like they pointed out that the Muslims are an oppressed minority in India in this article, which definitely needs to be talked about. There's so many overlapping things with the sexism in India.
Yeah. And also, like, here, once again, we can see, like, these things are not in isolation with each other. With war comes a lot of, like, rape incidents. Like, whenever there's war, whenever there's, like, this sort of, like, political conflict and some groups, like, go at each other, there's always, like, those, young women, any woman, and children who get, like, sexually assaulted along the way and because there is a bigger issue that is political or religious or whatever, most of the time these cases are just like swept under the rug.
Hmm, hmm.
And like this is insane. Like this is an insane case, and I'm glad that it like was discussed publicly. But it doesn't look like there was any justice to it, and
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
why like you should
Another,
know that like rape is political also, like rape is
yeah.
religious. I don't know, that's what I
No,
think.
definitely. I mean, since the beginning of human time, when they would siege a castle, the soldiers would wait outside for the people to starve inside the castle until they eventually broke in. And the first thing they did was loot and rape, right? The Romans did that every time they went to a new city and conquered, right? American soldiers are notorious for going to other countries, like in Korea, like in Vietnam, like anywhere we invaded, and leaving tens of thousands of children behind. Tens of thousands of American children were born in Vietnam, Korea, and other places where we had war because American soldiers are
Mhm.
known for laying pipe wherever they go,
Yeah.
unfortunately, consensually or non consensually. So, yeah, it's
Yeah,
a big
yeah.
problem. And if we're going to talk about rape and violence and war, and we're reading from the New York Times, we cannot talk about this without bringing up the fact that the New York Times was recently exposed for making up or fabricating, or at the very least, unsubstantiating a story about sexual assault by Hamas against Israeli women on October 7th. So they published a story saying that Hamas broke into, Israel and raped a bunch of Israeli women, but that was never substantiated. They asked the person who wrote the article, and the person said, "I just heard it from a friend." And really, the New York Times published that story. There was no
Mm.
evidence. They didn't talk to any of the survivors of this rape or anything like that. All the people that have been released from Hamas said, all the women said that they were not raped. I'm not going to discount the idea that some sexual assault did happen to the women, but where's the evidence and where's the proof? So that needs to be talked about the New York Times. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's crazy because yeah, like I said, anything like that is sort of naturalized with war because that just like women are used as tools between powers, to maintain dominance or something. Like that's just crazy in itself, and the what they did is crazy. Like you can't, it's not something simple. Like you can't just do that. Yeah, that's crazy.
Do you think we can still trust the New York Times after they ran that story?
I don't know. I mean, this is a opinion essay, so maybe I can
Right.
trust this since it's written by a woman and an Indian woman a little bit, but that's definitely like, minus score for New York Times. A
Right.
major minus score.
You should always keep a skeptical mind whenever you read anything. You should take it in and process it as information, but always be somewhat
Yeah.
skeptical. I'm going to jump into the comments real quick. Nelson Moreno says there's a lot of darkness in the human heart, unfortunately, but we always will advocate for the light to shine through because there is goodness in everybody, in my opinion. Ozzy says, yep, U.S. military in Iraq did some things. They were making them Iraqi cheeks clap. Yes, they were. And Nelson Moreno says, there's a beast in every man, and I'm a dog. That's for sure. That's for sure.
Okay. Nothing to be proud of.
Yes, there's nothing to be proud of. I didn't mean to say that they were clapping Iraqi cheeks non-consensually, but if Fatma wanted to give it up to some fine GIs, she could do that.
Okay. Anyway, continuing. After Miss Bono, there was the young physiotherapy student who in 2012 was beaten and raped on a moving bus and penetrated with a metal rod that perforated her colon before her naked body was dumped on a busy road in New Delhi. That was just painful to read. This is the case I was talking about. This something like this happened in Turkey, but they didn't put like a metal rod in her, but it was like it happened in a bus and it was like a gang rape. She died of her injuries. Women protested for days and even men took part, facing water cannons and tear gas. New anti-rape laws were framed. This time was different. We naively believed. It wasn't in 2018. It wasn't. In 2018, an 8-year-old Muslim girl was drugged and gang raped in a Hindu temple for days and then murdered. In 2020, a 19-year-old Dalit girl was gang raped and later died of her injuries, her spinal cord broken. The fear, particularly of gang rape, never fully leaves us. We go out in groups, cover ourselves, carry pepper spray and GPS tracking devices, avoid public spaces after sunset, and remind ourselves to yell fire, not help, if attacked. But we know that no amount of precaution will guarantee our safety. I don't understand gang rape. It is some medieval desire to dominate and humiliate. Do these men with little power over others, feeling inadequate and ordinary, need a rush of power for a few minutes? What I do know is that other men share the blame. The countless brothers, fathers, sons, friends, neighbors, and colleagues who have collectively created and sustain a system that exploits women. If women are afraid, it is because of these men. It's a protection racket of epic proportions. I'm not,
Wow.
let me finish it because there's only one more paragraph. Yeah, okay. I'm not asking merely for equality. I want retribution, recompense. I want young girls to be taught about Miss Bono and Miss Devi. I want monuments built for them. But men just want us to forget. The release of Miss Bono's rapists was about male refusal to commemorate our trauma. So we build monuments with words and our memories. We talk to one another about gang rape, keeping it at the center of our lives. We try to explain to our youngest to start protecting them. This is how the story of the defeated is recorded. That's what it all boils down to, a fight between forgetting and remembering.
I just said wow because I had to fart, so that's why I muted, and that's why I said go, please.
Okay.
All right. Uh, but yeah, those stories are horrible. Those stories are absolutely,
Yeah.
you know, to even think about them. It's absolutely sick. And yeah, like they're saying right here, these things happen every 90 minutes and stuff like that in India, which is crazy. It's not
20.
like maybe every 20 minutes. Wow, which is even worse. You know what I mean? And let's jump into the comments. So JS Venture says there's a very good exposing articles of IDF in New York Times. Send them over. We might read them because I do think it is very much more likely that more sexual assault against Palestinian women has taken place than against Israeli women, right? Because
Yeah.
the Israelis have so many Palestinians locked up in jails and stuff like that, and they basically dominate over them, right? And that needs to be discussed. Do you want to jump on that?
Yeah, I mean that's probably the case because since there are more casualties in the Palestinian part, like yeah, probably there are more rape cases. There were like videos and photos of Israeli men going into the houses of Palestinian like women, like just families, and posing with their underwear and things like that. Like I don't know if they raped them or something, but it's just sort of like this humiliation that's coming from that side to the other.
Yeah, yeah. JS Venture says a bunch of Jeffrey Dahmers in India. Yeah, it's really bad. But once again, I don't think reading these stories should make us, characterize all of India like this because it's so easy for anybody to do that with anybody. Like if you just look at, the violence in Detroit or Atlanta or whatever, you might say, oh, these black people are savages. They keep on shooting each other and selling drugs to each other and stuff like that. But we have to look at it systemically. Like, what are the reasons why this are happening? And also look at our own societies as well. Because within America, it is very likely in November a convicted rapist will become president. Literally, Trump is a convicted rapist, but people want to point their fingers at India, and there are people that like Trump. Come on now. Anyway, go ahead, actor. You want to say
Yeah,
something?
I definitely agree with what you said. Like we shouldn't stereotype people because of like what we read and what we see on the news because yes, after all there it is like one person in India or like a group of guys in India and it doesn't mean like, everything should be blamed on a whole nation. And I actually like this sentence in the article where she says like the other men share the blame, like because there are countless, like she says, brothers, fathers, sons, friends, neighbors, and colleagues that you know um, has to also like experience this with their female relatives, but also they add to the system most of the time without knowing. Like if we're talking specifically like the older generations add more to the system because whenever like a rape case happens in Turkey, it's those guys who says like, I never let my daughter go out at 12 a.m.
Hmm.
Like, what if she goes and what if it happens in broad daylight or something? Like, you know, you can't really like, you can't have, I feel like you can't have daughters and mothers and sisters and still like, feed it to the system. But that's what happens. People
Hmm.
should like just, think more. People think more.
Yeah, think more. And men, we really have to educate each other and stuff like that. And we also have to fight back against those things in our culture, which are problematic for women, right? Like earlier, I was talking about hip hop, right? And some people might assume that there is a lot of sexism in the Black American community, which there is not. In my opinion, there is not rampant sexism in our community. But we do still have a part in fighting the sexism that still is in our community, even if it is a small amount. So while I do love hip hop, I do love rap music, I don't think a rapper can make 20 million songs calling women bitches and not eventually, stop that. Like eventually make a song that talks about how you appreciate black women or appreciate women in general, right? make a song talking about how women are important and we shouldn't be disrespecting them. It goes both ways, right? Because music can serve both purposes. Sometimes you're not even listening to the lyrics. We all hear the songs where they say dance, bitch, right? But then we also need music that you get
Yeah.
what I'm saying? So, and we also stop the train culture. Guys, stop running trains on girls. That's nasty. That's nasty. Y'all two niggas getting hard with with a girl in the room. What Biggie say? Money and blood don't mix like two dicks, like two dicks and one chick. Find yourself in serious shit. Come on now.
I
Go
mean,
ahead.
there's no king shaming for me, but you know, I feel like, yeah, like those words like bitch and whatever, like things like that. We do use those. I use those and things like that, but it sort of depends on who you is using them a little bit, and also like if it's used for a bad purpose, because you understand like when you know there's a difference between bitch and just bitch, like like using it in a bad sense.
Right.
I'm not saying like we should never use it, but we should like know the meaning and the history behind words that we use, not only for that word but
Mhm.
in most like words that we use.
Right. And when we think about the word bitch comes from the slave master because what did they call black women? They were just meant to produce more slaves. And what is a dog supposed to do? A female dog? It's a bitch. Just you wanted to make more, dogs. So they would call black women bitches. That's where the whole
Mm.
word comes from. There was never a term calling women bitches until American slavery.
Okay, I didn't know that. Mm.
Yeah. But yeah, in general, I think what's happening in India really does need to be discussed, but it's something that they have to deal with in their culture. We on the outside should just try to advocate for the women there and also fight for justice for all people across the world and speak out against these sort of things. But bringing it back to our lives as travelers, like what advice would you give people so that they can try to avoid situations like this? Because in my opinion, sleeping in a tent sounds cool and fun, and 99% of the time you will be okay, but it is very, very risky behavior, in my opinion.
I mean, I would just say, because the thing is like, if this thing like happens, like if I say like always be in twos or always be in groups, like these people were together when it happened, so it doesn't really matter if it happens, like it's not your fault. But just for like giving like tips of it, just know how to read the room, and by room I mean the country or the town. So like be mindful of the dangers that could happen, and yeah, just try to, I don't know, like guard yourself in any way that's possible. I don't want to tell people like, yeah, if you want to do the tent journey, like I don't want to tell people, oh, don't go in a tent and stay in a tent and you have to stay at hotels and apartments. But I would suggest, if you have the means to do that, because it's more comfortable and it's safer. But like if you really want to be adventurous, then I'm not the person to tell you like you can't do that. But just, yeah, like read the room. I don't know.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Craig Mack jumped into the comments. He says it's risky behavior, hitchhiking, Simon. I would agree. Hitchhiking is something that we have done before when we were in a few countries, Mauritius, Albania, stuff like
Yeah.
that, right? We've hitchhiked before. Uh, it's not something that I would generally, recommend. We're sort of brave. We're together. I'm a man with hands, so we are able to take that risk. But in general, a lot of things we do in life are risky. What do you think about that? Hitchhiking. Do you think it's extremely risky behavior, somewhat risky? What do you think?
I would say it's a risky behavior. I just, did it a lot in high school because I was in one of the most like safest towns in Turkey. And it is like the leftist, I'm not saying leftists are, don't rape or anything like that. But yeah, it was just somewhere that I felt safe, and I would do it a lot of the times because, and I would do it with my friends though. I rarely like did it alone. Maybe like one time I did it alone. But yeah, I think hitchhiking is fun, but also like just because you hitchhiked and some weird guy stopped, you don't have to get in if you don't like the vibe of the guy. So don't force it. Like, and definitely do it in groups. Don't do it
Right.
alone.
Right. And generally, also, hitchhiking is hard. We have a few videos on my channel right here and also on Backpack Bandits, which you should subscribe to, where we hitchhiked, and 90% of the time the car is passed. So, Matt Villainy said he'll keep walking. Yeah, you will keep walking because most of the time people don't want to pick you up.
Yeah, and also like with hitchhiking, I feel like there's a mutual like sense of being scared because also the guy or the person who's picking us up might think like we're like bad people, or we might be able to do something bad to them, pull up a gun or something, or rob them or something.
Yeah.
So there's that mutual like, scared sort of feeling. So maybe that's also makes it a bit less riskier than just setting up a tent in the bush.
But that's the beautiful thing about traveling and life in general. When you do these sort of things where you have to trust in strangers and you see
Hmm.
that strangers will do great things for you, even go above and beyond for you. Like you might
Yeah.
say, I just want to go down the street. And the man says, No, I'll drop you off exactly at the airport. Like, boy, you didn't have to do that. Thank you. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, those things give you hope in humanity and make you realize that deep down inside, a lot of people are very good. And that's what I've learned from hitchhiking. I do not recommend it all the time. And like Aki says, trust the vibe. But, when it does work out, if you do it smartly and the person is kind, you will see, some good. You know what I mean? Come from you
Yeah.
and from them.
Yeah. Yeah. But definitely just, I don't know, try to keep safe and don't go or do things that your gut is telling you not to do, you know?
Yeah. Craig Mack says, I see you got your troublemaker tracksuit on. I like that name. That's what I'm gonna call it now in the house. Troublemaker tracksuit. I'm about to retire this thing. I'm about to retire. You might not see it anymore. But he says the hitchhiking was directed to you two. I remember when you went to the beach. I don't know exactly what video you're talking about, but maybe you're talking about hitchhiking to Zvenica in Albania. That one we did hitchhike, and that was fun. We also did some hitchhiking videos in Mauritius, so check that out
Hmm.
too. Do you have any fond hitchhiking memories?
I mean, the ones that I did with you, yes. I have like scary ones too,
Yeah.
which is not like in terms of like sexual assault or anything. But one time we hitchhiked in like in Izmir when I was in high school, and the guy got stopped for the alcohol thingy,
Mm,
and he ended up like getting detained
yeah.
because he was driving drunk,
Mm-hmm.
and he told the police officers we were his cousins.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was like scary because I thought we were gonna go to jail or something.
Yeah, yeah. You never know whose car you're getting into. They might be riding dirty. You got to take that in mind. But
Yeah.
there's danger in anything, right? Like we were traveling places, and I never told you this, but a lot of the times we were traveling, and I only had like $5 for like the rest of the week or something like that. Like
I
being
know.
broke.
You didn't have to tell me.
That's funny. But yeah, like when you're traveling as a broke person or a budget traveler, it is dangerous. We stayed in a hostel in Kosovo and we were sleeping in a room with like 30 other guys, and who knew what could have happened that night. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
mean, anything can happen while you're on the road.
Yeah.
When you fly in a plane across Africa, it could crash, right? Like anything could happen.
Yeah, I mean, you just take the risk, you know? You don't know what's gonna happen, and you have to kind of be at peace with that idea of sort of like constantly being in danger. But that's, I don't think it's like too different from being like at home having a normal life, because every time you go outside you still face that danger, at least as a woman. Like, you still you're still afraid of being raped or getting killed or getting robbed or whatever.
Right, right.
So I think that only increases somewhat when you travel.
Right, right, right. And by the way, Acti brought this up earlier. There is a very, very, very good movie called Far. It's a German movie about this couple who walked. They walked and hitchhiked from east all the way until they came back west to Germany. And it's one of the most amazing movies you'll ever watch. It's a long one, it's 2.5 hours, but I swear, watch that movie, it will inspire you. It inspired me to start traveling more, like when we first watched it in Turkey, and then we went out on the road for our little tour around the world slash honeymoon. And
Yeah.
it really makes me want to travel some more because I've had good times and bad times on the road. I've seen incredible things and I've had heartbreaking things happen. But through it all, it's made me grow as a person and open my mind in so many ways. And I wouldn't take back any of my trips, any of my travels, no matter what. And
Yeah.
I hope for all of you watching this video, you get the opportunity to do that too. And even to travel to India. I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it. I might have the privilege to say it as a man, but I feel like, this guy, the Vincente, is a brave man for going to India, traveling like he did, and also for being brave enough to put his face out there and stand by his wife and say, "This is what happened to us." Because there are a lot of people who would say you as a man should not, express yourself on social media like that when bad things happen to you. But I would say it takes ultimate bravery to stand up and say these sorts of assaults, these sorts of violent crimes should not be happening to anybody. And I'm willing to put my face out there to say it needs to stop. So he's brave,
Yeah.
and I hope all of you can overcome fears to see that the world is actually a beautiful place. That's my honest opinion. You want to jump on that?
Yeah. I mean, I just want to say that, like, for women, please don't be like afraid to step out and say like what happened to you. If anything like this happens to you, if anything less than this happens to you, also say it. Like, say that you've been groped and things like that. Just shame these men for doing these things. But don't stereotype like cultures and whole groups of men for certain things that happen. And for men, always stand, by your woman. It's very cool, very masculine to be a feminist, to be a defender of women's rights. It's very turn on. It's a very turn on thing to. I couldn't make that sentence, but
I'm gonna translate it to man, Acty. You will
okay,
get more pussy. You will get more pussy being a feminist than a red pill Andrew Tate cocksucker. I'm
exactly.
telling you, if you're on that incel shit, you expect to have a dry dick. I'm telling you. I'm telling you.
Exactly. You will win like more hearts with standing up for women and understanding women, listening to us, sharing our pains, and that way we can understand you more as
Very
well.
good. All right. Now the real comments are coming in. I like this. I like this. JS Venture says, "Is that Ferrari review coming this week?" I think we can do it this evening. I wanted to watch it after this live stream.
I have a girl date.
Aw.
Maybe.
Okay. All right.
If I
Maybe
do,
we'll do it to.
yeah.
Maybe tomorrow, JS Ventures. Let's see how the night plays out. Craig Mack says, "Simon, that marriage is over. You and I know it. Too much mental damage." Let's see. You think Vincente and Fernanda will get divorced?
I mean, it depends. Like, it depends on their personality and how they deal with the situation. It might bring them closer, having this shared trauma, or they might just like not, sync up together and not understand each other. And it would crush them. It might crush them as well.
All
But
right. I
I
might get.
think I believe in them that they like, I feel like the healthiest way to get over it is obviously like get help and things like that, but also stay together and support each other through this time.
Yeah, no, it would be beautiful if they did overcome that because it is a traumatic event that happened. But I always keep it real and I always keep it trill on this channel. And this might get me canceled, but Vincente might get mad if he watched the whole thing and feels like she enjoyed it.
This is so gross. I'm not doing this with you, sexist guys. Please stop. How can she enjoy something like this, first of all? And second of all, we read it and he thought she was dead. Like, he couldn't even see her because he was getting like beat up and they dragged him away. And even if that was the case, like, how can you be mad at a woman who got raped by 7 guys?
Okay, all right. Hear me out. What if Vincente says, "Can we do it again?" Because he got a little hard on when he was getting beat up and watched his and getting cucked.
No, then leave him, girl. Leave him. Don't stay with him if he's getting turned on by rape fantasy.
There's
Like,
some men
no.
that are into. There's some men that are into that. They like
Yeah, but
humiliation.
keep it as a fantasy then, and don't say it.
He like, what if Vincente found out the hard way, the very hard way, that he likes, cucking. He likes to be cucked. What if he found this out the hard way? I'm sorry. We talked about all the serious things. I've talked about how we need to fight sexism and all that sort of stuff, but I
Yes,
got to
but
keep it real.
this is not keeping it real. This is like something else. This is it's very gross to think like that any of them might enjoy this event, because the thing about like rape fantasies is like they are fantasies, they are not real, and when something real like this happens, I don't think anyone can still fantasize about it. Like,
Hmm.
even if you pay a guy to rape you, to like fantasize about it, those like uh room shit that they have in like Pornhub and stuff like that.
No, in France. In France, there's this company you can call if you're a woman, and they
Yeah.
will organize like guys to come over
Yeah,
consensually to take it.
exactly, but that's still consensual, like you still choose who rapes you. Like, come on. So basically, this when it happens in real life, it's impossible to like, even if you have that fantasy, I feel like it's impossible to enjoy something like that.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, no, I'm just saying, what if, Fernanda and Vincente go back home, and after a few months, Vincente is like, you feeling kind of freaky?
Stop.
Beat me out. Like, you get what I'm saying? I'm just saying, we have to play with all ideas. Gonna
That's
jump into the
gross.
I'm not being gross, but my definition of keeping it real is saying exactly what everybody is thinking, but they are too scared to say, or they don't know how to verbalize it. And we have to play with all ideas. That's my thing.
Okay, God.
Okay, let me jump into the last few comments. JS Venture says, I even read feminist philosophy and art, but get no vagine. Women deserve respect, and you don't have to bash on black women. You don't have to hate women in general. You don't have to hate on modern women and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
To get,
I think I agree, and if I would have to give any advice to you, I think the most important part is not knowing a lot about it, like Simon said, but being curious and wanting to like know more about it. So ask women like those questions that you're scared to ask, because I think like women find that interesting, that you want to learn about, how we feel or what we experience as women in this world. And also, don't mansplain.
yeah, don't mansplain. Well, sometimes, well, you can't. No, I wouldn't say. I disagree. I disagree. No, sometimes not mansplain as in no, this is what you think, but give your opinion. And sometimes the way men express their opinions is different than how women will express their
Giving your
opinions.
opinion is not mansplaining. If you
It,
think you're mansplaining, you probably are.
okay, well, if you're not cognizant of what mansplaining is, you might not even know you're doing it.
I'm saying learn about it.
Okay. Well, let's go here. India is a massive country. I'm sure it's safe for the most part, Ozzy says. Yeah, and I would like to go to the south of India, and also the north, like the far north where the mountains are and stuff like that. I do some hiking, not some Mount Everest hiking, but like light hiking I would like to do. And
Mm.
also to the south to the beaches and Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is on my must go before I die list. So, yeah. What about you in traveling to India, Acti?
I mean, I am very curious about India. I want to go to like the temples and stuff like that, but I am kind of cautious about it. Like, it's not the first place on my list in Asia, I would say. But one day, I told you this before, I'm probably not going to go there until I'm somewhat rich, like not a billionaire, but at least I can afford to stay in a, nice hotel or an Airbnb or an apartment or whatever, you know. I don't think I can do like slums of India in India. Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
Defend women, but don't put them on a pedestal. I don't think men should put women on a pedestal. No, you shouldn't worship women, right? And you shouldn't worship masculinity either. What you should just do is be level-headed and even. And in my opinion, being a man is about being somewhat self-reliant, being a man in control of his emotions for the most part, being a man who's determined, ambitious, intellectually curious, and being a man who's comfortable around other men, regardless of their background, and being so. That's my definition of masculinity. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm just gonna say this, like feminism does mean or does support equal like rights and everything, like in societal ways or in political ways, like just men and women being equal. It's not like, putting women on a pedestal or anything like that. And yeah, like, and let's just all be like good human beings, you know.
I think it's about ending the systemic practices that cause. I feel like I'm mansplaining, but
Yes, you are.
I I feel no, but I'm just giving my definition of feminism rather than explaining to you.
Yeah, I just told one aspect of feminism, Simon. I'm not explaining the whole feminism like propaganda, or not
Hmm.
propaganda, but like you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right, jumping into the comments. Andre Beja says, "Hi Simon, do you remember me? I'm not sure exactly. Do you know Andre? Did you meet her or him?
He or she is talking to you, not me.
Well, I don't know. Maybe you were in my comment section last time during my last live stream. KL says, "Damn, great looking couple. Thank you. I appreciate that. We try. But no, I think if you just say, oh, feminism is just about everybody be nice to each other, treat women right, like that's not enough
I
to
didn't
get us
say
to where
that
we
was
need to go.
feminism. I just said let's do that.
Let's do
Because
that.
I don't like to separate like being a good man or being a good woman. I don't like to separate those things. Just be a generally good person is what I
Okay.
meant to say. But
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Well, I think we covered everything. This went a bit longer, but I think we got a lot of good takes in, covered the story in and out. Anything you want to say?
I want to know who Andre Beja is.
I think it's an Albanian guy who was in
Oh,
my live stream last time,
oh, okay.
and he was me and the kid that was saying, "Will you be my?" Yeah, I remember you. Yeah, you're the kid who came in and said, "Will you be my first black friend?" And I
Ah, that's funny.
Villainy, JS Ventress, Ozzy, Craig Mack. There was somebody else who came in here earlier, Nelson Mano, and who
FXD.
else? Yeah, FXD. So, oh, and Donnie Williams as well. So, shout out to all of you for watching. Send more stories and stuff like that. Looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say. Send movie reviews as well. Send movie suggestions, and we will review them. And subscribe to what? Backup Pack Bandits. Let's go.